So, good morning, everybody, and thank you for having the power to do the stairs to come here. That's I understand the effort, so I appreciate it. So today we are talking about how to do better types to have the compiler help us, because I'm lazy, I don't want to write unit tests. So what I do, most of my time I do Android stuff, and lately I have been doing with Sebastiano a thing called Code with Italians, where we live stream our effort to learn Jetpack Compose and interview people from Google and things like that. So if you want to check, you also can get the t-shirt, YOLO. So jokes aside, today we are doing domain modeling. Domain modeling is a branch, one of the main pillar or ideas for domain-driven design. And the way you can think about it is creating a better system to represent your software that can help you to communicate with your teammates, also from other teams. So building a shared language to effectively model what you have in the code base. Because you have a lot of miscommunication and you waste a lot of time trying to tell people, oh, the user screen, you mean the profile screen? No, I mean account. No, because we call it settings. And you just waste time because you don't talk the same language. And as an example, I'm an Italian and I walk into an Italian bar, I ask for breakfast, and I expect cappuccino and cornetto, and I get eggs, bacon, and beans. So the thing is, the cook is British, and when I ask for breakfast, that's breakfast for them. So the way we can solve it, I come back tomorrow, and I train them to make the dough, make the croissant, how to bake the croissant, how to milk a cow, how to do the coffee beans roasted. So we don't actually do that. In real life, we get an Italian barista. That's it. So you add a so-called domain expert to your project, because if I jump on your project and maybe you did maps and I never done maps, it's gonna take a while. But if you pick somebody that was working on maps before, those are domain experts, and they are gonna speed up everything for you. So domain expert is basically somebody that knows what you are talking about, and you can make domain experts if you are an engaged team, because the more you talk about the problem, the more your people in the team become experts about the topic, right? So it's a team effort. And it starts like this, right? This is basically a model. Take a moment and try to understand what we are talking about. So on the left you have the what, on the right you have the how. Any guess?
Chess.
It's close enough. It's checker, okay? So we have something like an entity on the left, and then we have a way to aggregate properties around the entity, the plus sign, and then we have something to do the OR when you have a choice, and you have something that turns input into output, like a function. So this is the bricks, the basic Lego component that you have to model any system. And the more you start doing this with your team, the more things that you didn't see at the beginning, they show up. Like, there is something missing here. Can you see that we forgot something? What do you do when you start playing checker?
The goal.
Excuse me? Well, okay. Let's say I just want to model the board itself. So you are two players. What do you do?
Starting state.
Sorry. There is a name of a player and there is
Color of the player.
Yes, and that's the thing. So you forgot about the color. We forgot about the color. But then we start talking about this with people, and the model evolved. So that's the main goal of the exercise. So the model never ends because requirements are always changing, people in the team are always changing, so you have different backgrounds and different point of view, and you have more details that they surface over time. But how we do this from the list that we did before into Kotlin? We just need blocks, things that we can use. So we have three main things. So we need something that can hold information, a value object, and in Kotlin we have data classes. I mean, you can do this in every language. So I'm picking Kotlin because I know Kotlin, but you can do it in Swift as well, or TypeScript, whatever. So we have data classes for that. If you need to model a choice, well, we can use seal classes, or like restricted hierarchy, as the fancy people want to call it. It's just a choice. And then functions, you can use functions. That's pretty much, that was easy. And that's it. This is what you need to model any system. You just need to talk to people and use what you have to model the system. And I'm a very practical person, so examples are my thing. So we have product people, they join, it's Monday, everybody's happy, and everybody's sleepy, and they have a new video feature request. So we want to add the profile screen to our app. And the user profile doesn't have fancy stuff, it's just first name and last name. This is what the backend people send us, JSON, so pretty straightforward, a couple of strings. So we are nice people, we build a DTO because I don't want to deal with the word changing. A data transfer object is basically, I'm Italian, I'm gonna move hands for the whole thing. So I better just step a bit back. So, I mean, this is real. So a data transfer object is basically the classic thing. We want to represent the JSON in something with Kotlin. And if the JSON changes, I want my code to break in one point, and instead of propagating the mayhem through my code base. So I want to build a nice data class at the edge of my code base, so I'm not scared about the backend people changing how they represent things. So we agree that I'm getting a couple of strings. This is what it looks like. Probably JSON or Kotlin serializer or Moshi. I mean, they all look the same. The annotation is a bit different, but I don't trust the backend people, so everything is nullable because I don't care. Because no, Ivan, I'm always sending you a string, and then the parser breaks, and then I need to do things on my side. No, everything is nullable. But then you start thinking about, okay, but in my domain, that's not how I expect, right? User profile, I don't expect the first name and the last name to be nullable. So first thing that I do, I create something like a domain model, like a domain class that converts the DTO to my internal domain object, and that object is not null. Because, well, we need to have it. The problem is that you work with very interesting people and they start to mess up with your stuff. So I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a string, right? Empty string is fine. And then you realize that no, it's not okay, because if I have a first name, I want to be able to actually print it confidently instead of having a profile screen where there is name and there's nothing, because this is gonna be a bit too much. Okay, so smooth. Well, I mean, we're not recording, right? So the thing is, this happens, right? So you think that you have a string and then you get an empty string and things don't show up and you're like, okay, I messed up everything. No, you just get an empty string. So we want to improve on types because we want to be safe. I know Kotlin, let's do some fancy stuff. Because, okay, I don't want a string, I'm gonna implement a type alias. So I don't have string anymore. Here, I have first name and last name. But the thing is, you still work with shitty people, so they are gonna just throw a string at you no matter what, because type alias is just an aesthetic thing. So it's just like a visual thing that it's nice in IntelliJ, but it's still a string. So this doesn't work. So, okay, new stuff in Kotlin, I'm gonna go value value class. So value class is basically a thin wrapper around your class. It's not a string anymore. It's something very thin. The compiler does a lot of optimizations. There is a string inside, but now the type is actually a type. So the compiler can enforce it at compile time. So if I try to give you a string, that won't work. The problem is that I work with very shitty people that keep putting empty string in my thing. And I say, okay, this doesn't work, right? Okay, because, I mean, I hate them, they hate me, this won't work, and as long as my contract doesn't end, I need to work here, so we need to do something. And the only problem that I see with this thing, the very clear thing is that the constructor is the part that is messing with me, because they can use a constructor. So the first thing that I do, fuck it. It's a private constructor, and that's it. Nobody can create anything anymore. So how you put a string in there? You create something that is called smart constructor, because people are fancy. It's just a factory. That's it. It's a static method on your class, but this actually gives you the opportunity to validate the input, because I don't want an empty string, I don't want tabs, I don't want number, I don't want new lines. It's just, it has a bit of validation, and the thing is, now I have a function that gives me a valid first name or null. So the way we use it, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, it's just it's a static function, and it gives you a bit of confidence that if you get a first name, it's going to be a first name object that you can use all over your code base. So you don't need to check if it's empty or weird stuff. So if you get it, you can use it, or you get null. Once you start using the stuff, you get a lot of nulls. All nullable types all over the place, at least at the edge of your code base, because, well, you're doing a lot of validation at the edge of your code base. But if you start null checking everything, then you realize, okay, so if I have a user profile, that user profile is gonna be fine, because we did the validation to build the things that I needed to build the user profile. But there is a lot of if not null, so we can probably iterate on this. And some things that I like is refine types in Arrow. It's a library from a company that was acquired. So you know Arrow. If you are here, you have at least like an idea. If you speak Spanish, you definitely know Arrow. So that's why I'm also learning Spanish. That makes sense. So Arrow gives you a compiler plugin that saves you a bit of a boilerplate. So you can create these refined types where you pass a validation function and an error message, and you get basically what we were building manually, but you have it for free. And you also have other things that are useful, you know, things like fold, things like map. So in this case, for instance, you have a fold function where you can pass the value that you thing is a good first name, and then you have two lambdas that you can execute when it's not valid or it's valid. So it can be very useful to save a bit of boilerplate. At least I get the factory for free, and this is how I will use it, because something that you get from Arrow is also the nullable block, and the nullable block saves you a bit of if-else and indentation and things like that. Of course, it's not a syntax that we are familiar because it's not part of Kotlin, but that's just a function. Okay, it's just a block that takes a lambda, and in that lambda, you see those .bind functions. Is basically the bind is running the validation on the type. So line by line, the first name gets validated, and then you go to the next line, and then the last name gets validated, and the email gets validated. So by the time you reach the user profile constructor, everything is okay. Everything is not nullable anymore. So the whole thing exists. It creates this little tiny paradise where everything is just not nullable anymore, and you don't have indentation. You write it as a sequential thing, so it's easy on the eye, and it gives you back basically a nullable type, because if one of those fields is null, it short circuits. It basically gets out and it gives you back a nullable. So you also save a bit on validation because you don't have to validate everything if the first thing is already null. So this is useful. So this is what I like when it comes to model the absence of a value. A lot of people use like fallbacks. They don't want nulls, so they use a fallback with a default value. It's a very common practice, and that's how you end up with an empty user profile on the profile screen most of the time, because the name is not there, and somebody was like, oh, it needs a string, I'm just gonna give you an empty string. Something similar happened a couple of years ago for a chain. It's called 7-Eleven. 9/11 is definitely different. 7-Eleven in Japan, they released a new version of the app to also pay when you do, like, the gasoline you fueled your car, you could also pay. The problem was the system wasn't built for that. They added new feature. So for adding your credit card, you needed the date of birth that at that point was nullable because they were just using it for the marketing stuff. Say happy birthday when it's your birthday. So not everybody was actually adding it. And they tried to squeeze everything in the reset password situation. I was like, we're gonna reset people's password, or we're gonna send an email just to increase the security. And they started building the reset password screen. And I was like, okay, usually when the user forgot about their password, they are gonna enter the username or the email or something. And okay, we started with the username. And then somebody thought, okay, but if they forgot the password, maybe they also forgot the email. So let's also add the email. So to reset your password, you needed the username and the email. But then people start thinking, okay, but is it my email, your email? Is it gonna come to your email or my email? What if I ask for your reset password and I get the email on the email that I just entered? So I was like, don't overthink it. And then we also added the date of birth, because that's actually the data that we need. So to reset your password, you needed to enter this information. The problem was that the thing was nullable. The date of birth was nullable, but then it was not nullable anymore, okay? Because you needed it for the credit card. And they didn't have a discussion about, okay, what do we do to force people to enter the date of birth? They went for the easiest solution. So the date of birth was a float, a number, a double or something. And they were like, okay, it's not nullable anymore. I need to put something. I'm just gonna put 0 here because the compiler now is happy. Problem is that if you know a bit about computer science, you know that 0 as a date is not actually 0. It's like 1st of January or 97, something. So somebody that we don't know who figured it out that if they took the leaked user database from the year before and their email and the default value for the birthday date, they could build a script that was looping over every user, sending the reset email to their address with the 0 date of birth, and 8 hours later it was 500,000 gone. So don't do default value, okay? So if you need to move something from nullable to non-nullable, have a conversation, okay? Stand your ground and say, you know what, we need to talk about this because, well, now it's not nullable anymore. So don't underestimate how expensive it can be a nullable. Yeah, I mean, it's $1 billion, whatever. This was like way cheaper, but it's still a lot of money here. So don't do this. So the thing is, now we know how to model the nullability, absence of value. We know how null works. People wake up on Monday, I have new requirements, we have an email. I do the same shenanigans with the DTO, everything is nullable because I hate backend people, so I don't trust them. I also won this function here from another team that I also hate, because this thing is taking 2 strings and not giving me anything. I mean, who does that? I don't have source code, I don't have documentation, I just have a lot of hate for them. But then you start working, what you have, because you need to reach the end of your contract, so you need to work, and I have a mortgage, so you need to do something. First thing that you do, I'm just gonna send you an empty string as an email, because fuck that, right? So good luck delivering that. So this doesn't work, okay? This is over the same thing. An email is a string, not every string is an email. This doesn't work. Thing that we can do, now we know how to do refine types. I still don't know how to do regex, so I'm just copy-pasting shit from Stack Overflow. But now I know that I can build a function that it doesn't take a string anymore. It takes an object that is an email object, at least looks like an email. It's not necessarily a valid email, because we are not actually checking if the account exists, but at least has like a @ symbol, a domain. It looks like an email, well, the bare minimum. And we can make things better like this. It's a very easy wrapper. It's a safe send email. People will discover it over time. They will know that if you call it safe, it's probably because you want them to use it. So it's an easy approach. The problem is that requirements keep coming in. I mean, these product people, they don't sleep, right? They're creative people, so they realize that email has to be validated. And now we have also a Boolean to do if the mail is verified, because we want another couple of awful methods that don't give me back anything, and they have like just a string as an input, so I hate them. But we need to use it. So the way we use it is something like this. We check if the user profile is verified, and we send the email. If it's not verified, we send another email. So is this correct? How about this one? Is it a bit better? Is it wrong? This is wrong, and this is good, right? Okay. So the right one and the wrong one, they are actually they differ for like 1 char. But now you're scared, because they do a lot of different things here, like completely different things, just with just 1 char. So we don't want this. The thing that we want is we need to focus on what we are modeling. Okay, so the things that we are modeling is we want to know when the email is verified, because we want to do things with a verified email, and we want to know when the email is not verified, because we can just do one thing with an unverified email. We just can send a verification email. The Boolean is this weird shit that is going around, and everybody has to everybody has to think about it, and you are basically adding accidental complexity to your code base, because now it becomes like an oral tradition where every new developer needs to know about the Boolean, because if you change the email, the Boolean has to go to false again. It's like back in my days. No, I mean, I want to be better than this. So step back and start thinking, okay, what do you want to model? We want to model 2 different things, but we are punching them to use one single thing, the Boolean. You don't want to do that. So these 2 completely different use cases, they deserve 2 different types, because I want to be helped by the compiler. The compiler doesn't know true or false or whatever. They can't help me. So I want types. And this is pretty basic. So I build an unverified email. I throw an email in it because I don't want to use the string, so I know how to do that. And then there is this verified email that has a private constructor, because the verification has to go through some hoops, right? So you can create from scratch unverified email, but I don't want you to create a verified email right away. There is a verification process, like the same way that we did for the validating the first name. So I want to prevent you to create a verified email just because you want it. And now we replace in our user profile the email with a choice, because now the user has an email that can be verified or unverified. We keep talking about things, and they get easier to talk about. So this is like a super naive example of how you will build verified email. So the idea is that when you want a verified email, you provide me with an unverified email, because I cannot verify twice the same email, and then your compiler keeps helping you. And then there is some verification service that gives you back a Boolean. So this is oversimplification, but the idea is that you don't build it manually anymore. You have to ask somebody, is actually, okay, can you give me a verified email? We are ignoring errors and we are ignoring networks. So take it with a bit of salt, or grain of salt. How is it? Yeah, put a grain, put a pinch. Thank you. So this is the idea, right? So we have two things to model, two things. The compiler is helping us, and it's also easier for the new people to actually use the code that we have, because you cannot basically call the wrong method with the wrong input. The compiler will force you. So we can create, a new safe version of the function that we had, and the compiler will enforce the types. The problem is that this still doesn't give me any information about return types. So it's still returning unit, and it's a bit weird. The only thing that we can do in this case, not having source code or documentation, is trial and error. So I start just keeping calling the method. I'm gonna give you like a valid email, nothing comes back, no error, and I get a mail in the inbox, at least that. So we know that if it's a success scenario, nothing happens. We can iterate on that. As an Android developer, the first thing that I do is I kill the internet, and I get an IO exception, because apparently the library is using Java, so they are throwing exceptions. So, but I know, you get building more information. Slow internet connection, I get another bang, but now I have like a socket timeout exception, so probably after 30 seconds the thing doesn't work. And then if I give you an unverified email that is not a valid email, so you're trying to send an email to Ivan at something.com, the backend gives you an error because you get an error from SMTP. So the whole thing works, but it's just a bit weird to use. And then we get an exception that's called email not found. Now I'm actually dinging the microphone like that. Now I see the point. Italians. So they invented to prevent us to hit the microphones. So the idea is that now we have a few types of errors in our applications, and mostly you can group them in three types. You have domain errors. They are actually errors that you can solve at 100% because they are related to what you do. The app is doing. So the user is not in the database, so the email does not exist. You know that they can happen, so you can fix them. Infrastructure errors are the no internet errors. Okay, so our system is a complex system. It's communicating with things that can break. The database that didn't connect. The internet is not there. People are going into the U-Bahn and the thing doesn't work. So these are not strictly related to what your app is doing, but the fact that the app is communicating with the rest of the world puts you in a condition that, well, you need to take care of this. I mean, if you tell me that your app is crashing because there is no internet, come on, really? So yeah, but it's not my fault. The recycle view is working, yeah, sure, but there is no internet, so fix it. And then you have panics where you really can't do much, like the virtual machine just died, or you have a lot of auto memory on Firebase, and it's like, yeah, it's not a shitty Xiaomi phones and things like that. No, I don't buy it, because if you have an auto memory, probably you are trying to load a 20 gigabytes JPEG on a phone. That doesn't work. So it's not strictly related to what your app is doing or the infrastructure, but it's giving you ideas where to look, and you should still take care of this. So this is what we are doing at the moment. Now you say, okay, but I have domain objects, domain errors, infrastructure errors, and panics, but there is nothing here. So the signature is lying to our face, because it's all ponies, rainbows, or unicorns. You call the function, and nothing happens, and then everything blows up at runtime. We want a return type, okay? So I want to build something that gives me information about what's going on. The naive approach is just a seal class, okay? I throw everything inside. I have a success. I have the 3 possible errors that I discovered, and I start iterating on the signature. At least now I know that I get something back. It's still a bit weird to use because, you know, it's a seal class, so if you want to, now that we have exhausting when, it's even worse because you can't even fake it. So every time I give you something like this, you need to pattern match on every possible case. It gets heavy on the soul after a while, especially if you start nesting things. So let's do a step back as usual, and let's think about, okay, I want to model success and failure. At least I can separate the 2 tracks. And I say tracks because in latest years the approach was a bit more popular after Scott Vlashin published the railway-oriented programming model, where you have 2 tracks, you know, a success track and a failure track. It's a very metaphorical way of saying your function has to return 2 things. And the 2 things are, is everything okay? Everything is not okay. The way you can imagine it's like left or right, failure, success, track 1, track 2. That's just the mental model. So you have a function that has 1 input and 2 outputs. And if you start thinking about that, that's already getting uncomfortable, because if it's 1 function, easy. If it's 2 functions, how can I plug a thing that has 1 input in a thing that is giving me 2 output? So we have either for that is basically the result type on steroids, as I like to call it. Either it comes from Arrow, you have it in every language. So if you're Swift or TypeScript, you will have a library, or Scala, you will have probably Dart as well. You will have a library that helps you to build an either type. That is just this junction, union type, whatever. It's either left or either right, because creative people, right? So, and this is how it looks. It's pretty straightforward. Either is right biased. It's a fancy way to say that if you do dot map, you end up with a lambda that contains the value. So basically, if you know, I don't care about the error scenario. I just want to know if the things were okay, dot map. But then you also have fold. So you have 2 lambdas, one when it's going south and then one is actually successful, so can be useful. But the beauty of either is that it has the missing piece from result. So how do I plug these 2 things, one into each other? And that's flat map. So the naming is, well, we are creative people, so if you have like a introduction to Kotlin, you know map and fold. Flat map is also there. If you know about RxJava, flat map was there. It's a fancy way to say, I'm gonna take the input from the previous thing, feed it to the second thing if everything was right. And if there was an error, I just gonna shortcut out of it, okay? So you have the error management for free, and you can plug things together. Still, there is a bit of nesting, because, well, you are basically flat map and then you have a new function. In this example, I load a user, and then if I get the user from the backend, I use the user ID that I got from the user to call another function that gives me the list of friends. So it's pretty straightforward. You're just doing 2 network calls one after another. But now you have nesting, it's kind of meh, but then you have the Arrow people say, okay, we do the same thing that we did for nullable, we can do it for either as well. So you have an either block where you write sequential code, but it's actually doing a lot of stuff in the meantime, because, well, when you do load user.bind, that's a network call that can fail or can succeed. If it fails, we just go out of here. So the whole block just stops, and then you get a throwable in the result. Easy peasy. If it's actually successful, you go to the next line. And in the next line, you actually have a user. So either has nullable basically builds a kind of tiny paradise block where everything is nice, right? So you go line by line, and if everything is fine, you just go forward. So if you reach the end of the lambda, basically what you get back is a list of users. If for some reason in any point things go south, you get a throwable. That's it. And there is no nesting, so it's easier to on the eye. You just need to get familiar with the dot bind idea. But well, it's just I evaluate this either. That's how I see it. Dot bind is basically make it run. That's pretty straightforward. So now we have a seal class for the errors, and I have a single object for the success type. At least I split it into the two tracks. And this is how you use it. So on the left, you have the error, and this is how you build it. Basically, it's just dot left. Okay, so you create you need to try catch because you're using exceptions, so you need to do the try catch. But now you're doing the try catch only in one place in your code base where nobody's actually looking anymore after you build the safe version. And that's it. So you want to return something on the left because you got an error, you do dot left. If you want to return a successful value, you do dot right. The mental model is that the error is on the left, so wrong on the left, right on the right. And this is, one more example of how creative are programmers, right? I think we are the laziest people ever. So wrong on the left, right on the right. The end. But now, if you look at the signature of the function, yes, it's a lot of stuff that you don't know at the beginning of the talk, but now it's not lying anymore, because everything that can happen in that function is in the signature. Okay? So I know that it's either an error or either a successful event. If it's an error, there is a type. Okay, there is a seal class there, or there's an object on the other side. I call the thing. It works. And I like this because this doesn't lie me, and because we don't want to use exception anymore, because they don't exist in reality, right? If I go to buy some bread in a bakery and there is no bread, they tell me there is no bread, come back later, okay? So now imagine if they used exception. So you go to buy some bread, there is no bread, and the bakery explodes. So there's blood and brains everywhere, and you're like, but I just wanted bread. This is what the hell is going? So I refuse to throw an exception just because I didn't know how to handle it, and now somebody else has to handle my responsibility that I try to dodge, and at some point it's gonna reach the end of the chain where the operative system just drops the ball and you have an error on Firebase. We don't want to do that. So moving forward faster. So we have a phone number. So the phone number came as a string, but now we need validation. So we know how to do it, validation, because you can only be in London or in Britain. So if I put an Italian number, that is gonna fail. So you want to do that, you know how to do this. And then you have postal address, and say, what the hell? Yeah, because we are a bank, you are shipping stuff to users, so but only in the UK. So I'm gonna check the postal code, validation. So this looks good. But now you start seeing the pattern. So it was just the email, then it became the phone number as well, and then the address. So if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And if things were 0, 1, and 2, probably if it looks like a list, is a list. And this is what you want to do, right? Because you replace it with a list, and you keep adding information about, I just want to contact the user. Now you took out the constant changing to the user profile, and you moved it outside. So if somebody wakes up and say, I want another way to contact the user, the seal class is the only thing that is going to change. The user profile is not changing anymore. So we are preserving our domain model, even more and more and more, because the user profile, you don't need to know about how many ways you have to contact the user. And you are a bit future-proof, because you are segregating the possible changes in a seal class. And because we do that, when people come in and say, we want to use a pigeon to reach the user because, we want to go green, Greta is happy, let's use a pigeon. Now you're like, ha, I knew it. So this is good, right? So you segregated the change, you protected your model. And it's still very useful to talk about this because contact info is something that in the marketing team they can understand, right? So you can talk the same language. Shaking heads, they don't understand. Okay, but let's be positive. The problem is that they say, okay, they tell you, yes, everything is fine, but now I want at least one way to actually contact the user. And you're like, damn it. So now you have a list, and every time you need to check if the list is empty. Because, well, there is at least, you need at least one way. And now you build a tradition because everybody has to check if the list is empty. Every time they want to use it, they need to check. New people on board, and you realize that there was actually a page on Confluence where this thing was running out of time. Yes, and this is how Confluence works, is write only, so the moment you write something on Confluence, it's gone forever, so nobody looks at it. And now you lost the information. So how can you put the information in the code? The way you put it in the code is use the right type. So Arrow gives you non-empty list that turns out is a list cannot be empty. So and now you put the business constraint in the code. Nobody needs to know why this thing is there. You just need the type, and the compiler is going to help you. So domain modeling is actually a nice way to do team building. Share the language with other teams and let the compiler to help you, and forces you to think about errors because now they are very, very, very visible. That's it. Thank you.